For Telesur, I'm Sarah Begum in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin today in Mexico, where protests demanding the return of the missing students from Ayotzinapa continue. In the face of the protests, Mexican Ombudsman Luis Raul Gonzalez announced that a Guerrero State Army battalion would be investigated to determine if they committed human rights violations on the night of September 26, when 3 students were killed and 43 disappeared. Witnesses have claimed the army was aware of the attack against the students and did nothing to avoid it. Last Friday, protesters marked 3 months since the students were violently attacked by local police and armed masked men. Thousands blocked a main street in Mexico City. They rallied in front of the General Attorney's office, demanding the students be found alive.
The
government has been trying to fool us for 3 months. They are trying to make excuses, and we are completely rejecting them. We are convinced that the students are alive. We want them back now, and we know that this regime is against the wall.
And in Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro criticized the nation's right-wing opposition yesterday, accusing conservative lawmakers of obstructionism in the country's Congress. Maduro's remarks came during a military act held in the state of Carabobo. During his address, the head of state denounced the Venezuelan opposition's failure to vote for the approved nominees for the country's Supreme Court and National Electoral Commission. The opposition coalition boycotted the vote in Congress despite the fact that they had participated in the nomination of the candidates. President Maduro called the move divisive and an attempt to destabilize Venezuelan institutions. During his speech, the leader of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela also praised the work of armed forces in confronting the violent street protests unleashed by opposition extremists last year, which claimed the lives of more than 40 people.
It was the military youth of our country who came out to protect our people, with the Constitution in their hand and knowing what they were up against. It is you who know how far they will go and their perverse, violent tactics used to set the country ablaze.
And in other Latin American news, members of the Ecuadorian National Assembly will vote Monday on a resolution aimed at supporting the Venezuelan people against U.S. sanctions. The congressional resolution, which rejects the imposition of sanctions on the fellow Andean nation, forms part of a continental rebuke of Washington's attempt to interfere in Latin American politics. The U.S. government has accused Venezuelan authorities of engaging in human rights abuses when confronting last year's violent opposition protests. Venezuela has dismissed the charges, pointing to U.S. own record of human rights abuses, such as those documented in the recent release of a congressional report outlining torture programs implemented by the CIA. In world news, Indonesian officials on Monday said a missing AirAsia jet carrying 162 people could be at the bottom of the sea after it was presumed to have crashed off the country's coast. The Indonesian AirAsia plane disappeared after its pilot failed to get permission to fly higher to avoid bad weather during a flight from the Indonesian city of Surabaya to Singapore on Sunday. The search is focused on an area of 70 square nautical miles, where the sea is estimated to be only 50 to 100 meters deep. Authorities have said that 30 ships and 15 aircraft are participating in efforts to rescue And in Europe, the Greek parliament failed Monday to agree on a new president in the third and final round of voting, prompting a general election scheduled for January 25. Governing coalition candidate Stavros Dimas of the right-wing New Democracy Party fell short of the required 180 votes necessary to maintain confidence in the coalition government, thus provoking the snap election, which puts the left-wing Syriza party in a position to grab parliamentary power. And in the United States, tension continues between residents and law enforcement officers. Thousands of New York police officers held a memorial service in Brooklyn yesterday for the two New York police officers slain a week ago. During the funeral ceremony, policemen turned their backs when New York Mayor Bill de Blasio spoke. Tensions between the mayor and police were sparked by de Blasio's comments, which suggested that he sided with the protesters against police brutality. And to the Ukraine now, where President Petro Poroshenko announced this morning that he would meet with his French, German and Russian counterparts on January 15th. Poroshenko also signed a bill dropping his country's non-aligned status. He did signal, however, that he would hold a referendum before seeking NATO membership. Last Friday, a key round of peace talks in Minsk between Ukraine's government and pro-independence rebels were called off. It is unclear when the talks to end the conflict in eastern Ukraine, which has left 4,700 dead, will be resumed. And moving to the Middle East, Palestinians plan to submit a final draft of a statehood resolution to the UN today, calling for a peace deal with Israel within a year and an end to occupation by the end of 2017. Meanwhile, protesters in the occupied territories were fired on by Israeli security forces on Monday. Our correspondent Noor Harazin has the story.
Over the past days, Palestinian officials from different political parties, also youth groups, have been asking the people of Gaza and the residents who lost their homes and got affected in the latest summer war in Gaza to go out in mass rallies in different parts of the Gaza Strip. And it happened today. Mass rallies were in Rafah City, Khan Yunis City, Middle Gaza Strip, also Gaza City, and also northern Gaza, Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia. However, the Israeli soldiers close to the border near Jabalia camp fired at Palestinian protesters near the border and injured 4 Palestinian youth.
And we end today on a caller in the Chinese capital of Beijing. For the first time in 25 years, China's world-famous exhibition of ice sculptures will shine radiantly until mid-February. Over 150 craftsmen from China's ice city, known as Harbin, are busy with final preparations. Locals and tourists will be able to enjoy 4,000 square meters of a diverse selection of ice sculptures with themes including the Olympic Games, the capital's local culture, and Harbin's landmark buildings. More on these and other stories on our website, telesortv.net/English. For Telesor English, I'm Sarah Bagan.